For the Rich podcast. Today on our podcast, we're thrilled to welcome Ambika Devi, an award-winning author, holistic health educator, and profound voice in the world of spirituality and personal development. Her rich academic background with master's degrees in yoga, meditation, bachelor's degrees in astrology and fine arts equip her uniquely to guide others on their journey of self-discovery. Authored several influential books, including her acclaimed novel Lilith and introspective Unfolding Happiness. That's an interesting one, by the way. I want to get really deep into that. The work extends beyond writing and teaching, coaching, and speaking, where she focuses on empowering individuals to find clarity and peace through ancient wisdom and modern insights. So we're going to get real deep into connections between mind, body, spirit, mysteries of life and the universe today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a long little intro, but that's a very accredited, impressive background you have. Curious.
Well, I'm old.
Well, I mean,
that's part of it. I am 64 and a half.
But I love asking people how they got started. Like, so take me to the super beginning. Like, where's your interest in all of this? Where do you first find signs?
We'd have to go into past lives for that, Joe.
Oh, wow. Well, we got time for past lives, because I tell people all the time, I feel like I can remember, like, on my way to Earth, in a sense, that I remember having a choice of coming here. I always tell people that.
Well, as a yogi, we do perceive that everybody's been here before, and that there's no such thing as an old soul or a young soul, that everybody that won the lottery of gaining a human lifetime did so because there was an equanimity in karma. Karma means action, and a lot of people would do well to understand that word actually, literally, I'm going to use that word. I can't believe I just said literally, but I'm using it because in language, it does mean action. And the perception is that we win this human lifetime and we land where we land with a little pouch of karmic seeds, which is one type of karma. There are several different types. This is prarabdha karma, and this determines the body and look and possibilities of what we hopefully can experience in a lifetime in the game, moving towards moksha, which is liberation from being on the wheel of samskara, of being reborn again. So everybody here had an equanimity of what we perceive in the pairs of opposites of good and bad, on and off, up and down, this and that. And here we land in the human experience with a great deal of amnesia. And now we have the opportunities to learn and begin to move forward again. And then every thought we have, every choice we make, every action we take determines more, because each action, karma, creates a fruit, which goes to seed, which creates more seeds of karma. Some get stored in the big storehouse of sanchita karma. Some return right away in what we call in English instant karma, agame karma. And then some may be used in a future lifetime if we find ourselves, and when we might find ourselves back on the wheel once again. So we've all had this equanimity, which when we look around, it's a little bit tricky to be able to appreciate that. You know what I mean? That we have to learn love, and not just love pretty and nice and comfortable, but ugly and uncomfortable and irritating. I had a great opportunity earlier today to watch myself, because what we learn to do is to back up and witness how we react and whether we re-react. That's what gets us on a thought loop, another type of wheel. And I had been messaged on LinkedIn, which is a business kind of site, by somebody pretty high end that I'd never spoken to before. Now, I always check out the profile of who's messaging me, and, just like any social media, we could get hit up for different things. But this looked like a really legitimate high-end person that I would be honored to be connected with and actually do work with or see where it takes us. And so just like I do, I gave him link to my website, gave him link to my speaking page. And then I went to my blog to grab a particular article and was horrified because my site was an absolute mess. And I knew it was going to be migrated to another server. They don't tell you when, they give you a window. They don't send you an email and say, hey, we finished the migration. I had been there giving links before, but hadn't noticed anything until today, of course, in that moment. So I could feel my head wanting to explode, and I'm watching myself going, calm down, breathe. I had done some movement. I do yoga postures and I meditate. I had already meditated this morning. I had practiced pranayama, which are breathing exercises. So I had gone through waves of relaxation and peace. I talked to a couple clients briefly, very briefly. And then I was going to go to my mat to do some more intensive yoga when I saw this message and had to delay to call the company that serves my site and go through all that. And I had the opportunity to just watch myself and really curb the way I was talking to the tech, because it's really easy to explode on people like that. And it gave me this great opportunity to be mindful today. What does that mean? To really watch yourself. I don't know if mindful is the best term, but that's how we use it. Because mind to me is external. It's not inside
in a sense,
your coconut,
In a sense, it's like we're not going to rely on the subconscious all day today. For most actions, we'll be aware.
I don't use the model of consciousness, subconscious, because that's too much like a basement.
Think so?
Yeah, and then what about unconsciousness? Consciousness and awareness are interchangeable. We consciousness is what we are.
Well, so what does it mean to not be present then?
I use amnesia, forgetting that you're conscious being.
Because I wrote this down specifically about that. You're talking about amnesia, and I'm curious, when you're learning about these topics, did you ever have resentment, like for the amnesia, for having to learn these things? Humanity isn't taught about where we come from.
I get what you're saying. I don't think. I think some people might. Other people might go, "Whoa, I'm back in this human lifetime. I'm back on this game board." As I go through the decades and the days and the hours and the minutes and the seconds and the milliseconds, I have opportunity to realize the gift of every breath. Yogis believe that there's only a set amount of breaths that we are given in a lifetime. So that's why pranayama, the breathing exercises, are to halt the breath, slow it down, get it to where instead of breathing at what would be considered a normal rate, a normal pulse rate, learning to slow everything down. Can you take just one breath per minute? And I can easily just take 4, no problem.
It's interesting. I question how much longer we would live if we could all do that.
Correct. It is a good question. If you ever watch a little kid pitch a fit, have you ever watched? Seen a little kid throw a tantrum?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
Did you ever see them just stop and hold their breath and squeeze? I wonder what they're doing. Because when we hold the breath, when we halt it, the mind can't chatter. It stops. Then people overuse that and end up hurting themselves.
Yeah, you stay in that feeling, that state, or that emotion.
Timelessness, which is what we really are. We're timeless beings.
I have so one of my other earlier podcasts, we talked about how we're, I guess, electromagnetic because of our brains and stuff. What are your thoughts on how we influence our outside world externally, whether it's the objects around us or even the people around us? Do you have any thoughts on maybe psi abilities?
So is your question whether we can change reality?
Ooh. I wasn't wording it like that, but That is another way to say it. Yeah, it's just I'm really curious on.
So are you asking if I'm affected by the world around me or I'm affecting the world around me?
Our actual thoughts, brains being able to influence physical things.
Absolutely. Here's case in point. Those of you just listening, I'm holding up a spoon I bent.
No,
There's a video on my YouTube channel of me talking about mind taming,
It's
and I'm
Yuri
bending a
Geller in the
spoon while I'm
flesh right
doing the
now.
talk. So yeah, so we can bend reality. I was able to get my site back up and running today with the help of tech, and I did all the right things. I warned my designer, I warned my web creator who does maintenance. I said, heads up, this is going on, I'll keep you posted. My designer's in the midst of getting a free class that I'm posting to my course area, and I handled everything. But if I had gotten involved in pitching a tantrum, it may have still been going on. And then would I be present for you, Joe? Probably not as present as I am, because I did get to practice yoga, and I even got food together for afterwards. So
what do you think?
There you go.
What do you think makes us forget about our own power then? Because it seems like that's the issue, right? Like we don't realize that we're affecting lives every day. Are we just spoiled?
No, it's the senses. It's the 9 gates of the body. It's the 5 senses of sight, hearing, smelling, taste, touch, and then what goes in your mouth, digestion, what comes out you. Those are the other, and then sensory, the unseen. Because the way I see energy is toroidal fields. Are you familiar with what a toroidal field looks like?
I don't think so, but I can
Look it up, children.
Yeah.
Toroidal. It's you'll find images of maybe a humanoid with a donut shape coming up out of their head and around, maybe somewhere around the waist, and then another one out the feet and around. But if you get into theoretical physics, which I am heavily,
our magnetic field kind of, is that us around us? Is that the shape?
That you said electromagnetic. It is electromagnetic. We're mostly made of water, and water's extremely conductive. That's why you don't take electronics in the bathtub with you.
Wow.
Because you can shock yourself. Yes, we are toroidal fields, but within every toroidal field that is a humanoid, then we can break it all the way down to particles. So I'm talking smaller than electrons and protons. And yes, I am getting into some science, so stay with us.
No, go for it.
And then particles. And we hear people talk about cords of energy, that connect us. I don't see it as a cord, but maybe like a frozen river of toroidal particle fields. So I have clients that ask me, why can't I shake this? Why can't I shake this feeling? Why am I still thinking about this ex who was an ex for, more than 10 years? But then I'm thinking about them, and then they message me. Why did this happen? Well, first thing is, I don't know. It's your thing. Why did it happen? But on the other hand, part of why we can't shake something is because of how it affected us through the senses and chemistry. I mean, if it's another human being or even a place, like some of us can become really attached to a place we lived. And no matter where we move from there, we're still regressing back to the feelings of home, of how that felt like home. And, home, we know, is where the heart is. And the heart is the best decision maker. So get out of the head. The head is just a bunch of goo that looks like your small intestines, because at one point they were both connected. And that was the beginning of you. And that's why we talk about gut feeling, gut sensing. I knew it in my gut. And that's why there's also so much going on about gut biome and being kind, because if you can't digest things, you can't digest things, whether they're emotional or physical.
Do you
Wow,
have any?
that was a bit of a tangent.
No, but I'm still going on it. Do you have any thoughts on thought transference? Because I'm reading a book on that right now, and it seems to
Whose book are
scientifically.
you reading?
William Walker Atkinson.
Okay, I haven't read that. So give me in a nutshell, Joe, what thought transference is in definition by this book.
I think it's just that somebody can pick up what you're actually feeling and thinking and intention all at once.
Absolutely. This is remote viewing. This is ESP. Absolutely. This is psychic ability. This is present in us from birth, but it gets educated out of us in different ways. There's no one way, but we all have that gift. ESP is definitely something fun to play with. You can get a set of cards that are traditional. I'm holding up some cards that have images, everybody who's not watching, of colors. There are 5 colors, and each color has a particular shape. And these are a way to test yourself on where you're at with your tuning in. And when we are with another human being, we trade particles. But now that we know even more about particles because of what experiments have been going on with super colliders, we know that particles behave in such ways that we're not 100% sure about them right now. Science is speculative. Have we all been to space? Has Neil deGrasse Tyson, forgive me, Neil, been to space? Can he really tell me what's out there and what's going on? That's still speculation. Unless he has been there and he's just not telling us.
Oh, good little segue now, because I'm over here like thinking to myself, do I want to take it to have we been to space, Mars? Have we colonized yet? Or do I want to take it to are aliens real?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
But let's go back to transferring thought. So I've done a lot of that training and testing. I've been tested a lot on that as far as ability. And
what does that mean? What does that mean?
ESP testing, aptitude testing. When I was a little kid,
that's crazy.
My teachers realized I was super visually acute. I had acuity. Am I using the right word? I'm a writer. I should know this. But I was accurate with visual cues, and so they gave me a type of IQ test that involved visual. And the tester's job was to take these blocks, create a pattern out of them, and then mess them up, and then time me to see how quick I could make the pattern again. And I was going through the levels and going through the levels and going through the levels. And then it got to a point where she couldn't even make the pattern. And I messed the blocks up. I said, start the timer. And I mean, I was in 6th grade. I said, start the timer, and boom. I mean, even so fast that I put it together. I said, just show me the picture in the book for a second. And then I did it. So we went through the rest of the layers of that test.
So what does that test have to do with the ability, though? Is it the pattern recognition, or is it just the memory concept?
I don't know what the heck, but that was some thing that happened, and it still sticks in my memory, in the memory that that occurred. What was that about? When I was going to school for astrology, I am college trained, and I've studied. That was for tropical based zodiac, Western Greco-Roman mythology based astrology. I'm also trained in Jyotisha, which is Vedic astrology, and I'm self-trained in some Mayan astrology and traditional Chinese astrology. I love that stuff. I love astronomy. Obviously, I love physics. I wanted to be a theoretical physicist when I was a kid, but being female, looking at high school graduation in the 70s, I wasn't going to get anywhere. And I had already been studying yoga. You ask, how did I get started? I mean, my family gave me the opportunity to study yoga. I was taken out of a public school in first grade because I couldn't spell. I didn't know the alphabet, and then they found out something was wrong with my teacher, and we were already halfway through the year. And so my parents, were concerned. Here they had a first grader that was way behind and found out about a local Quaker school that was offering a unique and brand new reading program. And they invited me to be a student in it. And my parents, I remember the day, they took me to see the school. And after we met with the teachers and the principal, I remember them kneeling down and getting eye to eye with me and saying, look, you'll have to do first grade again. Are you okay with this? And I thought for a moment and I said, will other kids be doing this too? And they said, yes, there'll be a group of all of you in the same boat. And I said, I'm in, let's do it. And all of us became accelerated learners. We all fell in love with books. I mean, I've written 6 books. I've got the 7th one, and I've been in anthologies. But I've published 6 of my own so far. So, sometimes we have setbacks in life, and then we have a choice to make, and we have to figure out a way out of it. And sometimes our resistance could prevent us from something great. And sometimes taking a chance and a leap of faith could really launch us forward. And that's why there's no such thing, in my opinion, as fate, because that proves right there free will is a big part of it. And as far as transmitting thought, I believe we all have that gift, because can your parent flash you a look and let you know you did something right or wrong? Absolutely. Can you imagine what they're thinking? Absolutely. Do brand new parents know what's going on with their kid in another room? They do. They go running. They feel it. They wake up in the night, even though they've been exhausted, So of course we all have that ability, and we have moments where we can prove it. When we're in love with someone and get into romance, and we can't shake it, it's because we've traded so much electromagnetic, ionic stuff with each other that we've actually become part of each other at an energy layer. We have the physical body is the smallest body. It's meat. It's called the meat body. And then we have another layer that's emotional, and another layer that's intellectual, and another layer that's spiritual, and another layer where the seeds of your prarabdha karma hang out.
It's also worth noting that different cultures view interactions a lot differently from each other, right? Like some view a handshake already as intertwined karma in a sense, as opposed to maybe Americans are like, well, we had sex and it's whatever at some point. Like people
we're talking about that. Okay.
Like,
I think everybody has a different level measurement system of what a connection is. We use in English the word intimacy, and I believe incorrectly. If we're talking about sex, we're talking about sex. Intimacy is when you can look into me and see who I am, and I can look into you.
Then I guess a better way would be intimacy is taken more seriously with like less of a gesture across different cultures, maybe. Is that a better way to phrase that? Like less of an action.
I think from family to family, it could be vastly different. It has to do with culture, spirituality, so many things. What happened to that person in their lifetime so far. All of these things go into creating the end product or the current product of where we are.
Like, isn't a handshake a huge deal within certain cultures?
I think touching, yes, of any sort. There are some cultures that say you're looking for a mate. There's no touching before a guarantee of monogamy and a willingness to give this a shot and go forward. Wow.
That's interesting. That's an extreme level.
In very conservative societies, especially where matchmakers are used, then you will have X amount of meetings. You could go out for food, but you don't ever touch. You don't eat off the other person's plate. There's no hand holding. Hand holding. There's no physical touch, not even touching a hand or a brush of a shoulder. And that is an interesting way to look at it, because in coaching people about relationships, which I do a lot of, getting into one, maintaining one, sustaining one, and getting out of one consciously, if that's needed, then I think there's a lot to look at the progression of how we do things and the speed at which we accept things. You can really see the animal limbic brain kicking in a lot of behavior patterns.
Are there any commonalities, though, that you would say could be solved with this one thing that you see?
Which one thing?
Like with relationships, maybe, in terms of turmoil, because you're saying you give advice a lot. Is there something that you see often that you know could be fixed very easily?
I see patterns. I definitely see patterns. For instance, women or people who have a stronger feminine side tend to always want to feel more secure and more trust. And the questions are often, I don't know what, I'm going to use a traditional male-female relationship for the example. Everybody who's fluid, please just ride along with me. Because there is some plumbing involved, we're either born with innie or outie plumbing. And so let's just look at it that way. And whatever your identification is, that's fine. But I am using black and white terminology here. Just wanted to give that disclaimer first.
Yeah.
So in a strong feminine with a strong masculine, which would also be electronic, positive, negative impulses, not looking at it with a good and bad, but rather receptive being the feminine and forceful being the masculine.
Balance.
So the receptive wants to know, what are they thinking? What are they feeling? What's their intention? And the forceful one is like, yeah, we're going to get it on or not, and if I say, trust me, you got to trust me. And so I'm going to talk to a lot of the heterosexual guys here for a moment. Guys, she wants to know what you're thinking. She wants to know what you're feeling. She wants to know what your intentions are. What does that tell you? That tells you that you got to open up more. And women, stop being so dang anxious about this. Learn how to say, I need to feel secure. I need to feel safe. I want to feel trust. I require this in order to make any kind of commitment and agreement. Therefore, I need for us to create a way that when I'm beginning to feel insecure, I can get your attention. And then okay, I need to make this person feel more secure. If I could get that through to people, wow, we could take things to a much higher level.
Yeah. I recently saw this video of a guy addressing a room full of women, just basically saying, how many of you, is it not true that you can sense when something's off, like a man is cheating or whatever, and all of them agreed? He's like, how come you can't sense when a man's not doing well or something's off about him? And the room just got quiet.
When a man's not doing it well?
No, when he's just not doing well, like in general.
Oh.
Like something's wrong with him, something's going.
That he's stuffing feelings.
Yeah.
Well,
it's interesting.
It is interesting.
It's a selfish perspective a little bit.
It is. Can we blame just one thing? No, it's society. I
it's
think
like, but to acknowledge,
we could go back to telling boys don't cry. Stop feeling your feelings is pretty much how that translates. So, and then there's just so many layers and levels of what calluses. The thing I see is, people want to know, does the other person love me? Because we want to feel love, but the question should be, am I giving love? Am I able to give and receive love? Because if we're going to want to receive something, we have to make some space for it. So we have to give some out. Now, I'm not saying you're not loving the other person, but I also want everybody to get from this that when we can back up from everything, and be the witness and be non-reactive, it doesn't matter. Then we learn to love everything, even what's uncomfortable. It's a constant thing. I mean, when I got riled earlier today by my website, was I in love with everything? No, not for that moment. I had a reaction. I actually felt like the right side of my head was exploding. I felt it. And then I laughed at myself and I went, all right, I can see it. Now, is this reaction going to help me get this taken care of? No. Okay. So what do I have to do? So I set about on the tasks. And then as I felt myself bubbling up again with a possible next feeling of my head exploding, I took some breaths. I relaxed. I didn't say so many words. I was quiet. I let the other person talk. And then I started to see, because I don't want to react anymore, because reaction is what creates pain. We know this scientifically. It's been proven in ER rooms. There are methods used from meditation being used so that when somebody comes in with a number 10 pain on a scale of 1 to 10, once they can take their focus off of the pain and put the focus somewhere else, it will instantly drop 50%. Now, what does that tell you about how you react to stuff every minute of the day?
Now pay us for this. Sorry. Medical jab.
You can pay me. I'm totally. I have a donation link on my link tree. Just slash my name, Ambika Devi.
That's so great. That is a good point, though. Like, they throw you in the ambulance and they just start doing meditation techniques to you to calm you down.
Breathing, taking your focus off of it. A good EMT is trained in this.
Interesting.
But hopefully good parents are trained in this. True. And hopefully we're training ourselves in this.
Yeah, my sister's training my niece, and that's hilarious to think my niece is like 5 years old doing that. But
I think it's awesome.
Yeah, when we talk about like meditation and yoga, can you explain how yoga and meditation might attract positive changes in one's life from a scientific standpoint? But mainly I'm asking this because most people don't want to do these kinds of changes, right? If I told you to meditate and you don't meditate, you're like, what's the benefit? You want to see noticeable change in your life. You want to finish your session and get up and walk outside and you're like, what? How did that happen? Synchronicities immediately.
But here's something we need to first understand about meditation. First of all, meditation is not a destination.
It's a process.
It's a state of being. It's a verb.
So you want to stay in that process.
So first we learn the traditional techniques. We do some physical yoga, which, some people think is the practice of yoga. That's just one out of the 8 branches of the main branches of the tree. The asana, which the word translates to mean to find one's seat, because we're going to learn how to sit in a particular way, maybe with your legs crossed, maybe with lotus position. Doesn't matter. Sit with the back up straight. That matters. Close the eyes. Easy enough. We can all pretty much do that. And even if you can't sit and you're in a bed and that's where you are, you notice the difference of how you can shift a little and maybe straighten your spine a little bit more. And then focus on the breath. Okay, that's where a lot of people get hung up. Those are the 3 directives, the ancient directives of how to meditate, how to find the state of meditation. Okay, I don't know which part of my breath to watch. Should I watch my belly? Should I imagine that I'm in my nose, watching air coming in and out? There's different ways, and that's why the breathing exercises are so potent and powerful. But also the power of your voice, and this is what I've been studying for a PhD and working on research in for the last decade. Since I got my master's in yoga, I've been focusing on how can I teach people about meditation? How can I teach them to tame the mind and create some trust in themselves? So let's say we get there. We find that state of being where we don't know what day it is. We don't know what time it is. We don't know where the body is. We don't know if we have a gender. Yeah, that disappears too. We don't know we have a name. And the most important one, we don't know that we are. We don't think we're this meat body anymore. We merge, we disappear into what is a field.
Talking about the void.
We could say particles, right? the particle field, the cosmos, the omnipresence. This is what all the spiritualities are trying to teach us.
Are we talking
about the G word?
Deep meditation right now? Is this what we're getting at right now? Because I'm thinking of the void.
Yeah. So in the state of meditation, but once we learn how to do it seated, then we have to stay in it, get up, open our eyes, and walk around in it.
Wow.
And then when we get really good at being in the state of meditation all the time, which is bringing yourself back, bringing yourself back, bringing yourself back. So back to my example of my head and my website earlier, I was not in an equanimous state for a moment. I realized I was reacting because I'm a human. I found some humor in it, which always helps me. I was able to back up and witness it. I was able to see clearly tasks that needed to take place. I was able to carry them out. I was able to center myself, do some other things, and keep breathing, slowing down the breath, right? Because when we get nervous, the breath goes really fast and then we use up some time, right? So I chose not to react. And any time something came up about it and flashed across the dark IMAX screen of the inside of the forehead, I said, oh, there goes one. There's another one. Back up again, recenter again, reground again, get back, chop wood, carry water. That's what that means, is those seemingly mundane tasks can help us. And then when we get good at walking around in the state of meditation, everybody, then we learn nidra. Nidra is bodies totally at rest, just like you were in deep sleep. Connection to the mind, full awareness.
Ooh, wow. You just made me think that's how dreams come true.
And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, about making things change, bending reality. Right?
And do you think, okay, I know you don't like the word subconscious.
No, it's okay. It's okay. But I understand we need a stepping stone.
Yeah. Do you think that might incite it or provoke it in a sense as you're going through life?
It what? Subconscious?
Okay. I mean, I'm assuming that you're having positive thoughts, right? Because if you're meditating often, you're probably not going to be negative thinking. So do you think you're evoking these higher subconscious mind to come into your life? Are you provoking it unintentionally? The reason I'm asking those is because I'm trying to understand the scientific aspect behind it, right? Like, how do we convince people, hey, it's not going to happen immediately, but there are some good things that happen when you keep applying this? How does it work scientifically?
Depends on what your desire is. You know? Kama. Interesting. The word for desire is so similar to karma. Just missing a letter in English.
Intent is the only real difference, though, huh?
So the desire is to become oneness. I'm going to use a G word, everybody. If we're going to use the omnipresence idea as God. And I think this is what a lot of the world religions are trying to teach us. Mm-hmm. You know, we're trying to learn to be good, be kind, be nice, serve others. That, you know, selfless service, that's a great and necessary tool. Be devoted, you know, sing, chant, do nice things, spend time in nature. Be kind to you, be kind to others. And then actions, you know, real actions, maybe abstinence from things that hurt us, abstinence from things that cause others hurt and harm, good actions, and then knowledge. Because without having those other three, even though knowledge is really super important, because knowledge is the switch that flips the light on, that helps you see that thing on the floor is not a snake. It was a rope. But does it matter?
Wow. Wow. the does it matter fuck with me. I was like, oh man, even worse.
You invited me here, Joe.
Okay, well then in that case, let me take it to a more fringe narrative real quick, because I have a huge fascination with Skinwalker Ranch, just for a few reasons.
All right, UFOs and aliens.
Yeah,
Have you watched Resident Alien or read the comic or the
I
graphic
don't think so.
novels?
No, I don't think
Forgive
so.
me for calling it a comic book, but
Wow. Might be
it's a
offended
graphic
somewhere,
novel.
someone out there. But the reason I'm asking though is because we're talking about the omnipresent aspect, and I'm also talking about the subconscious aspect. And on the Netflix documentary, there's a part where things are happening, and it's before that. It's like a subconscious thought that they would have, right? They'd come back and the room was rearranged, or maybe they meant to do something and now it's done for them. So there's just a lot of like, it almost seems like some precognition involved with the higher realm in a sense. Like they might know what you're going to do, might know what you're going to think or say, or your intent. And it even makes me question if you're walking into these areas, if they can, I don't know, spiritually know what you're feeling, thinking, and I don't know how to even explain what I'm
Okay,
explaining,
they being aliens,
or whatever that consciousness is,
other
right? Whatever's,
beings from not from this realm that we
I,
perceive as this physical
I
realm.
would have to assume that that's what it is because I don't want to use the G word and say that God specifically exists in Skinwalker Ranch only, you know?
No. It's in every particle. It's omnipresence. It's cosmos. We have to understand the macrocosm, which is the greater, space or beyond space. Come on, we're not the only galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
We're not the only solar system. All those stars, that's the center of somebody else's solar system, right? If we're going with the theories of space.
So you're saying Man in Black is real, basically.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. The whole concept of
but we're not going there today, Joe.
Okay, but just
not on the air.
All right.
Okay, but aliens and spaceships. I used to live in Arizona, everybody. I had a little apartment in Scottsdale, and I was having a little party at my apartment, and I had a balcony that faced to the north. And it just so happened, a bunch of us are out on my balcony. It was a nice, cooler night. I know Joe had shared with me that he went to Arizona in June. Don't do that for fun, unless you really like heat and saunas, dry saunas. But, well, you could do it. But, and lo and behold, what do we see? The 7 lights over Phoenix flying right at us.
Weird.
Yeah. One of the bona fide,
most well-known,
unexplained. I still use UFO. You can name it other things. It's still something flying around that's unidentified. And did I have other experiences while out there? Heck yeah. I used to go out to a hot springs outside of Phoenix all the time. I would go out there, spend the night or sometimes several nights. Almost every time I was out there, I saw stuff in the sky.
Whoa.
I had a client who's very, very famous as an astrologer. I used to go to UFO conferences. They had them a lot out there in Arizona.
That's cool.
No wonder. I mean, I kept seeing stuff. Why not? And I had a theory about anti-gravity. Remember, I wanted to be a theoretical physicist, and I wanted to run it by this guy who was a former engineer for Waring, who was doing research on some recovered stuff. And I was really adamant about, I got to meet this guy. And then one of my astrology teachers, who was my astronomy teacher, he said, hey, Travis Walton would really like to get an astrological reading. And I told him about you, and he'd like you to give him one. And I said, I'm in. Travis Walton, everybody.
Oh yeah, no,
is
I know.
Who the movie Fire in the Sky was made about.
The one where he literally left, right? Was gone for days or weeks. His buddies
watched him, and yeah, there's a Hollywood movie. He was really frustrated about the movie, and this was years and years ago when I met him. I have an autographed copy of his book.
Were you charging for these things? Was this
I didn't charge him for that. Heck no. That was my pleasure to give a gift. I do, however, charge for astrological readings.
That's good to know, though. I would love to know that sometime. That's good to know.
But yeah, you can book appointments at my site, everybody, or send me a message if you have a question, or even a discovery call. If you're not really sure what you want from me, maybe you want to learn a little bit about a lot of things, and we can just do a short call to see where to start. But Travis was really spooked by that experience. I mean, he was still noticeably spooked, and he was one of there were 3 keynotes for that weekend convention, and the wearing guy was another one.
What do you remember, though? You're kind of glossing over that story. What was so compelling?
I have to keep some confidence.
For sure, of course.
A lot of confidence. There's a signature in an astrological chart between 150-degree angles that form a particular shape to 150-degree angles pointing, and they're called yods. Yod is a Hebrew word that means the finger of God. They were all over his chart, pointing. Whoa. There were a lot, and there are signatures part of this called abduction. They were all over his chart. I mean, was he destined to be abducted? I don't know. Was he abducted? I truly believe he was.
Is this a combination of all your different readings, like combined, or is this just one?
No, this is just looking at one chart.
Wow.
And it takes a lot of contemplative energy and meditation to really be able to see things, because there's layer upon layer upon layer. I used to write pop astrology horoscopes for newspapers. I find it incredibly boring and trite. I mean, I've been on TV as a relationship astrologer.
At the same time, anyway, you're not discrediting it, though, right? You're saying it's very
No, I'm
real.
An astrologer. I mean, I've had he's a high-end client. I've had international bankers. I gave a session to someone who at the time owned the 5th top Fortune 500 company. I mean, I've had some really high-end clients, but I also have clients who are just regular people who want to understand what am I doing here?
The charts correlate always, typically, like with some compelling aspect of their lives.
A chart is like a map to go on a road trip. So we want to we land, and so that's where we're starting the road trip.
There's no time.
And we want to get to point B, right? But if anybody's ever been on a road trip, back in the day, we didn't have GPS, everybody. We actually went to this place called AAA, and we got maps. And then they took a marker highlighter and they made a route. But say you wanted to go, but I'm going by Virginia. I want to go to Williamsburg. Oh, okay, you can go this way, or you can go this way, right? But then you could be driving along and there could be a detour. Or you can make a choice and go, you know what? I don't want to go there anymore. I want to go over here. That's life, everybody. There's no set way it goes. Every thought you have, and I said this earlier and I'm saying it again, every thought you have, every choice you make is a result of that thought, and every action you take is a requirement of thought and choice. That determines the next moment.
Wow.
Now back to aliens. The guy from Waring definitely had a piece of stuff that he talked about and described, and he was supposed to try and reverse engineer it. He said he would cut it, he would burn it, he would do things that would reconstruct. And if you know about sea cucumbers, that you could actually whip one up with a stick blender and it will reform into a sea cucumber.
Wait.
So if a biological creature can do that, why can't there be something that resembles metal that could do that?
Whoa. Oh, man. Yeah, you just got me into the aspect of combining biological matter with technology, too, right? You can just
don't you think that's what we human beings are? If we're electromagnetic? We're magnetic because we have so much iron in us. We're electronic because of the central nervous system.
Interesting.
Are we not some form of construct?
We're a computer too. We got material.
We're a processor, but the processor is the brain and the gut, or are the brain and the gut, and the information is coming from external. But who's feeding it to us? That's consciousness.
Yeah, a stream somewhere.
And awareness is when we have those flash moments, people saying, oh, I'm opening up my third eye. Well, the reality of the energies of the chakra system is that from the throat down, we can work on these things, but anything from the throat up, we don't really have any control over. I explain that in my second book, Unfolding Happiness. It's got an introduction to cosmology, and so you can learn about it there.
Is there anything you actually take away from, I don't want to say Walton, but either of any of your clients that maybe are commonalities too from the abductions or experiences? Because I hate to hear all the messages are the same.
I haven't talked to that many abductees. I'd like to talk to more. If you're out there, I'm here to help. I've definitely had encounters of my own, but we're not going there either. Well, remember, I saw a lot of stuff in the desert. Damn. And then things would show up in the newspaper the next day that just made you go,
But did you ever communicate, or are you just seeing things?
Oh, there's communication. In Travis's book, Fire in the Sky, I highly recommend looking at it because he does describe different, should I use the word species or race? I'm not really sure, but different types of beings. And then I really love In Resident Alien, which is my new favorite show on Sci-Fi Network. And I'm going to plug Netflix. You can watch it there and you can rent it. But they do talk about different species, and it's hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. And Whitney Strieber is another one who is a great author who wrote Communion. He's had some bona fide experiences too. It exists. But then, you've got to be tuned into your telepathy in order to communicate with a lot of them. Right? And then what about like, have you ever seen the artwork of Alex Gray?
Of course.
Yeah. Well, not everybody has. I brought it up to someone who actually has a metaphysical school and never heard of him. So I turned that person on to his artwork. So, if you have partaken in any kind of shamanic ritual, or I took people to Peru for several trips to drink huachuma. It's legal there. It is a cactus that has DMT in it. And then there are places where you can go and legally partake in ceremonies with other plants like psilocybin. I mean, that's even being used by healthcare practitioners now for mental health and microdosing. And I think I am definitely an advocate of this, because if you are so whacked by your reactiveness and you are so under the influence of amnesia, of forgetting that you are connected to all this, and you are creating a lot of pain and experiencing a lot of pain, then these are things that can help. And I have seen profound things happen. I took a group to Peru on one of the trips, and one of the people in the group, 6 weeks before we were getting ready to leave, first of all, this person had never had a passport. So they'd never been out of the country before. So right there, I've got extra I need to take care of as a tour leader, right? Extra cradling. 6 weeks before we go, this person is diagnosed with rectal cancer.
Damn.
And wants to know, should they go? And I said, well, truly, it's up to you. But, we'll take the best care of you possible. The food is going to be super clean that we're eating, because I'm an advocate of that. And through just I think she did all three. I offered 3 ceremonies, but 2 were you really have to partake. The third is optional. And when she came home, it was gone. Not regression, gone. So, there is that mind-thought connection to dis-ease. And I did teach holistic health at the university level for 21 years. Why don't I do that anymore? Well, there's a few reasons, but I did realize that a lot was going on in our relationship with the mind and thought. And also astrology is really super helpful for this. You see, yoga, Ayurveda, Jyotisha, these are the three sisters, daughters of the Vedas. Yoga is for the mind. It is meditation, is the curative. Ayurveda is for the environment. A lot of us, and my book, Unfolding Happiness, is an introduction to Ayurveda, an introduction to meditation, and an introduction to cosmology. So all three are in there. But it does lean into health and wellness. And so Ayurveda is not just what we're putting in our mouths, or not even what we're putting on our skin or our hair, but it's our environment. That's our diet. What kind of media are you taking in? Yes, I watch some TV. You already got that from me. But, you know, we have to get some dopamine release to stay happy, right? And as long as we're not going overboard on anything, I like to take that stance of everything in moderation, you know, and switch things up. Don't just stay with the same bowl every day. And you can translate bowl to whatever you want it to be. I was thinking food, but you know. And then Jyotisha, the science of light. Ayurveda is for the body. So we've got yoga for the mind, Ayurveda for the body, Jyotisha. Can you guess what that's for, Joe? You ever hear that phrase? Mind, body,
soul, I'm guessing, yeah.
Spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the science of light. It's astrology, everybody. That's the missing link. We keep pushing that to be some pop culture thing or to be, you know, some taboo. Then we're missing a third of the formula of how to be happy, whole human beings. If you're not going outside and still looking at the clouds and imagining, you know, bunnies and elephants and things in the sky, you're missing it. You might also miss some things flying by. And then if you're not going out at night and marveling at the Milky Way and the constellations, and you can't point up and tell me that's Mars and that's Jupiter and that's Saturn and that's Venus rising in the morning, but now she's going to be an evening star. If you can't tell me this, are you really here?
Do you have any thoughts on synchronicity?
Yeah, it happens.
Next
so you know, let's
that's a
use
good way
the example.
It's a good way to put it.
I was hoping you would ask it right then. How synchronistic.
Yo, that's real though. People do look for that in everything where it could.
Oh yeah.
Merely
we can get really obsessed. Now there are divination systems that use cues from nature, right?
I like the I Ching for one.
Yeah. The I Ching, but it's okay. I took Chinese in high school. So there are systems of reading, you know, the way birds act, or certain things in the wind, or is the sky a certain color in the morning or the evening, and so many different ways to read animals, to the point where some cultures even started slicing them open and reading their entrails, right? I mean, it got heavy. Was it necessary? I don't know. But then now there's such an obsession with triple digit numbers. You know, one of my teachers, Linda Goodman, who was a famous astrologer, she wrote an excellent numerology book called Star Signs. You want to learn about numerology, read that, and then also read Harish Johari's book about just the numbers 1 through 9, if you want to understand numerology.
And you
and
believe
if you want to learn it from me, just come to me. I'll teach you.
It's super powerful, by the way, that you know zodiac and numerology combined. Just want to say it.
Oh, you have to know numerology, geometry, calculus, counseling, mythology.
Astrology.
All of these are part of astrology.
Yeah. Wow.
All of these. You know, if you're just looking at a chart and going, oh,
I'm just getting an update notification on my app.
Venus is in, Venus is in Virgo. Okay, you're never going to have a relationship. Oh, please. Venus is in the 7th house.
Yeah.
But it's in Virgo. And the 7th house is contracts and agreements.
I trust your
can be seen
already.
As a marriage house.
I'm trusting
Well, wait,
you
just told me I'd never have a relationship. but then it's in the seventh house of contracts and agreements. So now what? And then, well, wait a minute. What about the geometric angles of everything else to it? And hey, I use more than just 9 points, which are the planets and the nodes of the moon. I also use asteroids. I use mathematical calculations from Arabic astrology. Oh, I'm an uber nerd. Uber nerd. I live alone. I don't have pets. I'm not, I have plenty of time to read and contemplate and remember. I meditate. So when I look at a chart, all this information is speaking to me. Do I start the same place? No, I'm not just looking where the sun is. That's what's your sign. That's why I got tired of writing horoscopes for newspapers. But when I was a behind the scenes astrologer on a show on TLC, it was a reality show where the producer would bring in couples where one wanted to rekindle a relationship. So they dated in the past and broke apart. And then if the show could find the other person and the other person agreed, they would be contestants on the show and they would go on dates. And it was my job as the behind the scenes astrologer to predict whether they could make it as a couple or not. I was 100% right. 100%.
I love it. You reminded me of the GG33 guy.
GG33.
He's the most well-known numerology guy probably on the internet, I would say.
Please forgive me. I'm not aware, but I will check him out.
But yeah, he kind of has that same mentality, but he's literally known for numerology. So people are always like, here's my birthday. Give me a reading.
Right. Well, I also look at Chaldaic numerology. I look at the power in words and names. So whenever I'm naming something, a book, a paper, a website, I am running it through the Chaldaic and the Pythagorean, and I'm looking also at the 1 through 9, where it reduces to.
And technically, these are subsets of what, magic in a sense, if you were to go back far enough.
Magic with a C or magic with a CK?
Oh man. I would say, I don't want to say K, but I feel like that's my initial reaction.
So magic with a C is prestidigitation.
What does that really mean?
Foolery.
Got you. Yeah.
Hand, sleight of hand.
Yeah.
Which fools your awareness. Magic with a CK is supernatural, the inexplicable.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, because those are the only books that I've seen where they change the titles to, and it's actually speaking on supernatural. Anything that I've ever heard with that would be with a CK,
but then they should be using it like that throughout the book. If it says C only at the end of the word magic, come on, change the spelling. It's still acceptable in English, but somewhere along the line, I don't know exactly where, we stopped spelling magic with a CK to represent the supernatural and denoted everything. We began denoting everything as magic with just a C, saying, oh, it's not real. So then what does that do to our psyches that says don't believe in the supernatural?
Interesting. Yeah, I was about to ask you about the stigma around it, your perception on it and how that came.
I think I just answered it. Because then science comes in and says, well, if we can't prove it with our methods, it's not real or it doesn't exist. Really? You're just now starting to figure out that the surface of a particle equals the same math as the surface of a black hole. You're just starting to get a clue that maybe the sun is a black hole.
Dang, I didn't even think about that. That's ironic.
Nassim Haramein is onto it. He's got a team really onto it.
That is super ironic too. And I wouldn't be surprised, right, if the world is more literal and backwards. That's a super as above, so below kind of metaphor if you think about it.
But haven't we heard that phrase before?
Yeah. Do you think that there is a lot of universal truths that we're kind of ignoring in our daily lives?
Both from the East and the West. Absolutely.
Elaborate on that.
Oh, the ancient mystery schools, the magic squares of numbers, the the tarot, what an amazing thing the tarot is. And wait, come on, people. Why would you be afraid of a card? What power does a painting have over you? Well, maybe it does. I don't know. I mean, I've definitely seen some weird stuff. In my first book, Lilith, I wrote about very real experiences I had in both New Orleans and Savannah. The main character talks about it as if they're hers.
You can talk about it if you want. I would love to hear it.
Sure. And these were ghost hunting. Hunting experiences.
I'm ready. About to go get some popcorn real quick.
We said supernatural. I kind of have to. Yeah. So when I was writing, well, even before I wrote Lilith, I took trips to New Orleans when my parents were still alive. They were foodies. And so that was a natural place for foodies, and they loved music. So hello,
Yeah, Cajun and soul.
We used to, when I became a young adult and then, kept growing into more adulthood, hopefully, we used to meet in different places. And New Orleans was a destination we met a few times, to partake in some great food, great music. And I wanted to go do some of the stuff I was interested in. I mean, come on, Madame Laveau's grave. I'm going there, Cemetery 1. And I want to go on a ghost walk. So here I am, the very first time in New Orleans. We weren't staying in the French Quarter. We were staying on the other side of Canal Street. But the hotel was supposedly haunted. And
you didn't mind yet? No belief, or what was your perception?
Oh, I've been talking to other realms for a long time, from a little kid, and nobody ever told me no. Nobody ever said that doesn't exist. But
you weren't scared, is what I'm getting at? You weren't scared to go to this hotel?
No, I was fascinated. Like, wow. Am I going to see something? So we go in the hotel, and we get our keys to our rooms, and I had my own room. And I walk to get in the elevator, and I'm having a vision of like horror movie in this elevator shaft. And I get up to my room, and I immediately take a shower. Like, that was intense. I'm talking stuff oozing down the walls. It wasn't really, but I had a very clear vision of it. I have that ability. What we think is reality can melt and turn into an IMAX film for me that I'm in. And, I can come back out of it.
So there's just kind of a vision impressed over you in a sense?
The only way I can describe it is suddenly I'm in the movie. It's like, imagine if you were watching a movie in a movie theater and you walked up to the screen and then you were in it. And there have been films that have been made like this.
So it's kind of like the environment's morphing in front of you in a sense.
Yeah. I mean, I had an experience when I was 9 years old at the Vatican where I walked into a painting. It had to have been a portal.
What?
Yeah, but that's another story. We're talking about ghosts. Yeah.
Harry Potter's real.
Oh, yeah. I taught at a school of wizardry for 5 years.
What?
Yes.
just taken back. I'm just so taken back this whole episode. Go.
You invited me, or did I solicit you? I don't recall.
Let's keep going. Keep going. Doesn't even matter.
Is it working out for you, Joe?
This is amazing. I just don't know where to go with it. I'm like, I don't want to let my viewers down by not asking more about something super cool. Jeez.
I can always come back for another round.
Sure. Keep going.
So let's do the ghost story. So this is the first night. I already have an experience in the hotel on Canal Street. Now we're going to the Quarter for some po' boys because my dad had to have one, and great jazz. I mean, we're listening to this music, and then they're getting tired, because they're older and I was younger. And I said, you know what? I want to go on a ghost walk. So I walk down the street and I go to Reverend Zombie's voodoo shop, and I get a ticket to go on a ghost tour. And all of the tour guides show up, and they divide us into groups. I'm in a group, and the tour guides are all like SCA, Society of an acronym they're dressed up in period clothes. And mine is like looking very Civil War, but maybe a little pirate. And I'm thinking, this is cool. I'm so in. And, the tours are going off in other directions, and we're like the last group still standing there. And he leads us across the street. I'm like, are we going anywhere? So we go through this alleyway of a very famous pub restaurant, and we go into a courtyard in the back. And our guide starts telling us a story, and he's a great storyteller. Well, I'm jumping into my IMAX realm of listening to him and hearing him, but suddenly I'm seeing it play out of this horrible incident that occurred. When a lot of ghost stories have to do with some nasty stuff like murder. And so there was an argument, and I'm seeing it. It's like the building lit up, and I'm seeing it. And the group, I'm sensing them, and I'm standing on one side of the courtyard, and there's like a semicircle, and our leader is addressing everybody. And I'm watching this person grab a shovel, go upstairs, argue with this person, throw her out a window, come down the stairs, grab her by the hair, drag her across, go through me. And I had one of those like freezing chills, that you watch on these ghost hunting shows, and then dig into the ground right beside me and throw her in there. And at that point, I'm coming back to where I really am. And our tour guide says, and can you guess what happened next? And everybody's crickets, because it's the first stop, and we're going to go to
looking
like
at where it's buried. I'm guessing.
I'm like looking around, and there's a little kid in my group. He probably was around 10 years old, and he's on to me already. He must have been watching me when I was like, because the tour guide's pointing up there and I'm looking, but he must have picked up on something from me, because he's 10 and he's not as damaged as the adults.
He's just observing.
He believes, right? So I feel him just staring at me, and everybody's crickets, and I raise my hand like the shy kid, right? And I get called on, and I say, and this and this and this happened, and then he dug it up right here and he put her in, but she wasn't dead. And everybody gasps. And the tour guide's like, wait a minute, have you been on this tour before? Did you read about this place? I'm like, this is my first time in New Orleans. I just had a po' boy with my parents. I haven't read any stories. After dinner, I decided to get a ticket at Reverend Zombie's and try this.
Wow.
So then we leave because I nailed it. And the little kid is on me. He's like, okay, tell me more. What else did you see? And we're walking to the next place. And we're out in front. And again, he tells this great story. It's about this one fire that burned the French Quarter down. And it's a famous story of candles, that caught onto the curtains, and the window was open. And then sure enough, the tour guide says, can you guess what comes next? And the little kid's like tugging on me, like, go on, tell him, and, he's yelling, Ambika, she could tell you. And I'm like, shh, I don't want to seem like some kind of, shill on this tour, I don't want to ruin it. This guy's doing a good job,
Yeah.
So people guess, and then he comes over to me, the tour guide, and goes, go on. So I say, well, that story, yes. And then there's something further back in history. What I'm picking up is that there were these burial mounds that the Native Americans had, and that they kept eternal lights going at these mounds, and that there was anger about the city being built on this land. Nailed it again. So now every place we go, it's become a game, ask Ambika, and I would fill in the story, and it got to where people are cheering. So now we're going on our break, which is the pub crawl part of it. So we go to a pub to sit down and rest and have a drink. And as we're walking there, the little kid's on one side and this big guy from England is on my other side. And he starts to reach into his pocket as we go in, and he asks if he can sit down. And I say, sure. And he says, okay, Miss Ambika, if you're so smart, if you know this stuff. And he slaps his business card down with his fingers on it on top of the table. He says, if you're so good at this, then tell me what I do. So now he wants me to use ESP to read his business card face down on the table. So I take a breath.
Accepted.
I take a breath and I think, God and Goddess help me. And I say, I'm getting this impression, CPA. And I don't even know, do they have CPAs in England? I didn't honestly know if that's what they were called, And I say, CPA, a certified public accountant? He goes pale. He pulls the card and turns it over, and sure enough, he's a CPA. Now he's the one at the next stop going, ask Ambika. And it became this game. It was really fun. So that ended up, a lot of that ended up, I just ruined it in my first book. But then there was a whole other trip to Savannah, Georgia, and the most haunted place in the old part of that. I won't blow that story. And also, I have done overnights at the second most haunted house, because the first, you could not get me in there. I made the mistake of going up on the porch and touching the wall. I don't even like going past that square anymore. No, thank you. I pick up way too much. There are techniques where certain types of recording equipment can be taken into old spaces. Like this happened in Philadelphia, where the Declaration of Independence was signed. And they actually recorded conversations from the walls. That's why we say the walls have ears.
Whoa. Interesting. What do you think that actually is, though?
Energy. I mean, is there an up, a down, a side to side? Like that poem that is becoming quite famous. There is no up, there is no down, there is no side to side. Yeah, you can find it on the internet.
Do you have any
great singer, songwriter, poet, scientist, speaker?
Any thoughts on orbs?
Which ones? Energy orbs? Yeah. Like, is it orbs or is it dust or is it the way your light filter and your camera's working?
No, this one was definitely real life. Like,
sure.
30 feet away.
I posted something on my Facebook page today that I saw on, wow. What's the Osborne? Ozzy Osbourne's son's page. He posted something that looks like a portal in the sky. And I reposted it to my page on Facebook this morning. And a friend of mine who's very science, very math oriented commented, looks like good CGI to me. And I said, well, if it is, it's fun, but isn't it fun to imagine? So
do you want to elaborate on your Vatican portal story?
Sure. I can tell that one. So I was 9 years old, or maybe 8. My parents took me on a tour of different places in Italy, and it just so happened to be Easter time. So we went to the Vatican to be blessed by the Pope. And afterwards, we went to see the Sistine Chapel because that's what I wanted. Remember, I have a degree in fine art. I loved art and music and dance and all of it. And I was obsessed with Michelangelo. And so we went to see the Sistine Chapel. And back then, it was not a mob scene, believe it or not. I mean, I can't even imagine trying to go in there now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was a lot of people in the square being blessed by the Pope, up in the balcony. But my dad always had this ability to meet people who could get us behind the scenes. And he got us in a little group tour. I was the only kid, but they promised I would be good, and I was a good kid, So he offered to take us to rooms that are lesser known or seen by tourists. And my family was all in. So we go in this room because also I was fascinated with paintings, and so one of the lures was amazing paintings, frescoes all around this room. A fresco is painted right into the plaster. That's what
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So the Last Supper was painted directly into the plaster of the wall of a little church. I actually saw it before they removed it, and yeah,
that's cool.
You could just walk in that church and see it.
Never knew that though.
In Venice, yeah. So frescoes are the plaster is still curing. It's not moist. It's not like marshmallow fluff, but you paint right in and then it solidifies into the plaster. So these were unbelievable. If you've ever seen any of the paintings at Caesars or the Venetian in Vegas, it was that bright, the intensity of the colors, of the light. And it looked like Greece. It did not look like Rome. And there was a fresco on the left side, and the adults were all over on the right back corner. But I was fascinated with this wall image of steps that led up to columns that look like a temple. And I was also fascinated by the 3D quality of the painting. So I was walking towards the wall with my arm out because I anticipated I would feel the wall, I would stop, and then I could look, at the surface of the wall and see maybe some of the texture of the paint or the plaster. But the wall wasn't there. So I walked up the steps. And then I was on the third step looking at the columns and about to walk to feel if I could feel the column. And I felt this hand grab me by the back of the neck of my clothes and pull me out. And it was the priest who was giving us the tour. And he leaned forward and went, "Shh." That was interesting, wasn't it?
Wow. And it's crazy because what are you going to do to a kid, right? Especially on a group tour, or you're not going to make a scene. That isn't a pretty appropriate reaction.
No, the adults were all over there in the corner talking, and he must have caught, a vision of me walking into this portal. Later, years later, I was in Greece, and that had to be a temple to Venus that I walked into.
So what are your suspicions on this? Do you think that they have these that are maybe just go to different parts of the world instantly? Portals set up everywhere?
Not just this world, but other areas like wormholes. Like if you're a fan of Star Trek or I love the Y-Files on
YouTube.
That's
a good one. Love it.
I love AJ. Too bad I'm not in Arizona anymore. I would definitely... Oh, Hecklefish is hilarious. I love him. His teeth freak me out a little bit. But
yeah.
I don't know if I want the plushie, but sometimes maybe.
I like when he interrupts him and cuts him off just briefly, and they're it's dude, no one's there. I love it.
I love their relationship. I really do. And I'm definitely a fan. If you watch the credits at the end of the show, you'll see me several times in different t-shirts. There's me in my Illuminati t-shirt. There's me in my Bigfoot t-shirt. There's me in my Wi-Fi University t-shirt.
Holding a Hecklefish.
No, holding actually a journal with a pen.
That is cool. That's cool, though. You actually support the content creators.
Yeah. I'm a supporter. I think he's a great storyteller. I admire and support great storytellers. I hope to be one day.
I think you already are one, but I also think
I was being facetious.
It's definitely more
with 7
the way
books. I kind of hope. Yeah, I mean. My newest book is called Cupid is a Bastard, and in it I've got flash fiction and artwork. If you want a memoir, this one actually there's stuff about me in all my books, but this one's got even a chocolate recipe and some aromatherapy and a tea recipe that's called Chill the Flower Out.
That's good.
And a conversation between me and Cupid, who turns into Ambika Devi, who is the Far Eastern version of Cupid. It's kind of cool.
Is there any personal narrative you relate to when writing your books?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, I know you said that like the first one was all your experiences and stuff, but do you tie your personal narratives to the characters, like in all of them?
Well, the first book is a novel. It actually won a prize. Some of my books have won prizes. Well, I've won writing prizes. Lilith is a fiction novel. It won an international spiritual fiction award. I get stuck in spirituality department a lot, but to me, it's just human. You know, it's just relating. Maybe it's cosmic, but maybe that's not a choice of entering. Unfolding Happiness is an introduction. It's a self-help book. It's a self-enrichment book. Introduction to Ayurveda meditation and a bit of cosmology. And it's got a great Ayurveda test that you can take to see what your dosha is, which is what your nature is, having to do with the elements of nature, and then where you're at right now, so you can see if there needs to be more harmony. The Wizard and the Wrench is a poetry book, and that was put together when I was a professor at a school of wizardry. So I'm the wizard, and the wrench is my friend Dominic Albanese, and the poems are having a conversation. He's a very famous poet about the Vietnam War. He was in the original documentary. They're talking about making another documentary of him, and I hope they do. And he was a Ferrari mechanic, and he's got also a memoir book and writing another one. His stories are great. And then I wrote a little goddess book that was an invitation to write it as a chapter in an anthology collection. But I said, yes, you can publish this, but I'm going to publish it on my own. So I made it an ebook and then translated it into Spanish, and it's got pretty pictures. Will I make it into 2 covers? I don't know. And then Cupid is a Bastard. The curriculum that I wrote for the psychic arts department about meditation is a 7-layer course that could be taken over 7 years, because the school was designed to be for 9-year-old to 17-year-old.
Wow, that's super cool.
So actually 10 years old, like Harry Potter, right?
Wow.
And that is my work too. So even though the curriculum still remains at the school, whether they're using it or not, they have my permission, and I have the permission to turn it into whatever I'd like. So I have a manuscript that I'm deciding how much. Maybe the first book won't be all of that. Maybe it will be more concentrated. So that has information about how to center yourself and energy and how to relate to it, and chakras and magic with a CK.
Is that basically what the school was teaching? Wizardry?
Wizardry, which is not sorcery. There's a confusion. Witch and wizard are not gender specific. We know this because there are movies about male witches, right? So wizards, unfortunately, are not, and J.K. Rowling didn't denote this. She used the idea of these terms gender specific. But a wizard, the word wizard comes from the same root as the word wise. And it is a watcher, a witness. We're back. We circled all the way back to yogi. So truly, wizards are yogis in a sense. At least I was a yogi wizard for them. And there are ways of practicing yoga that will create superpowers. But if we're striving for a superpower, we're missing the point of what yoga is really here for.
one of the things I want to ask, and I've been asking some of my previous guests, so I'm sorry if my listeners are like, quit asking about this, but it's just that nobody's ever been able to confirm that they've heard of Dynamo Jack. Have you heard of him?
No. Who is Dynamo Jack?
Basically, a spiritual healer, and I believe he was in India, and there's like a documentary on him.
You mean John of God in Brazil?
No.
In South America?
No. This is a different one. I'm pretty sure
they're both named John.
Dynamo Jack. Oh, is that another word for John?
Oh, Jack. So, well, yeah. Jack and John are
interesting.
Jack is a nickname for John.
Interesting.
It can be a name, but
it could be. Maybe there is, but
I mean, as soon as I heard that, I thought, is that a nickname for John of God? Because he was very famous for sticking something up your nose and.
No, I think this was more of like Reiki, and he would go into he was trained for 20 years of really deep meditation, and then he had these abilities where he could heal people. But the thing that got my attention was that when he would publicly display these abilities, he would have nightmares of his like master and teacher shunning him, and he would and he would have repercussions in real life when he was publicly displaying the abilities. Like someone would get hurt in those moments.
My goodness. That's because if we let the ego get involved, you know, I stand on my head. It's the primary yoga asana posture. There are 4 postures that a Raja yogi like me, which is one of the paths, the action path of also sometimes called the imperial path, because Raja means king. There are 4 postures that are considered the king, the queen, the prince, and the princess. Interestingly enough, in the tarot, those are the court cards, you know, the king, the queen, the knight, and the page. But in some decks, they are prince and princess. So, okay, that hierarchy is used. We see that holographically repeating itself. And so the headstand is the king, the shoulder stand is the queen, the standing forward bend, the prince, the seated forward bend, the princess. So I practice those every day. But if I'm standing on my head going, oh, aren't I good at standing on my head? What's the point? Do I sometimes make a video of myself standing on my head and post it on Instagram? I do. You know, but it's my intention to not get egotistical about it. It's just, I'm 64 and a half. I'm pretty jazzed that I can still stand on my head every day with a proper headstand, you know, on my forearms, not
another aspect,
not with my hands.
To the healing was also that he would specifically instruct them that they could never come back and see him again if they wanted to be healed. So did
he do psychic surgery too? Did he pull stuff out of people?
I'm pretty sure if that's how they were leaving completely healed.
And where was he from?
I believe it was in India.
I need to write this down. What's this? Dynamo?
Yeah.
Huh. I mean, that sounds like something from American history almost, you know, like on the railroad.
For sure. I just want to make sure it's not dynamite.
Okay, yeah. Well, you can let me know. Well, yeah, you want to let us all know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Dynamo.
But I will definitely research that. I knew people that went to see John of God in South America, but unfortunately, it didn't cure what they went for.
John Chang is his real name.
Chang. So is he... So...
No longer teaches, performs healing for inquirers.
What brand of martial arts do you know? Because it had to be related to one of the more esoteric martial arts. I'll research him. We'll all research him. We'll come back. Yeah. We'll reconvene on this, everybody.
For sure.
If you find something really cool, send me a message at my website. You can send me a message.
Do you have any thoughts, though, on the whole master, you know, coming back and being like, you're disobeying or letting me down in terms of...
Oh, your master smacking you from the other side? Yeah. Absolutely.
That's a real concept? Do you think so?
Well, I think it can show up like agami karma, like instant karma. You know?
Wow.
Sure.
I don't know, that one resonated with me a lot, though. Like, more than the actual ability itself. Just the fact that you could, like, let somebody down in the afterlife, you know? I'm like, whoa.
It depends on your spirituality and your beliefs, I suppose. you know, how that all works.
True. And what do you think about the aspect of it being this deep meditation, like 20 years to be able to harness these abilities? Does this come back to the whole, you know, you're in that state, coming back and going?
I'm getting this flashback from the movie A Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger,
where he's some like super deep breathing
where he's
techniques.
being introduced and by Chaucer, who they took on in their little band of merry men, and he said, and he spent an entire year trying to understand a whisper.
Oh my God.
You know, and at one point in the last decade of my PhD challenge which is simple. I want to teach meditation so that I want to teach meditation to people so that they know that they are. And it's a double entendre. So that they know that they are in the state of meditation, but so that they know that they are the Atma.
Interesting.
Which is part of Brahman, which is the G word, which is the omnipresence, which is however you want to phrase it. So at one point, my professor was teaching me things. You know, I would meet up with him, and he would. It was really amazing, some of the notes I wrote down and what I was learning. And then he left. He left the States and went back to India. And then he disappeared for a while. And I would contact him and he would message me every once in a while. And I said, what should I focus on now? You know, well, go take classes, go learn, go explore, go research. So I did. I mean, I have a spreadsheet of all the courses and things I've taken various places. And then he gave me a mantra, a string of Sanskrit words.
Oh, wow.
And he said, practice this daily. And he had given me this thing that Brahmins give to little Brahmins in training that's made out of elephant grass. And he said, you know, this needs to be touching your body or touching where you're sitting and meditating. And then a year went by, and then a second year went by, and then a third year went by. And that was all I did for 3 years. And I'm still on the path, still, you know, wondering. I mean, there's been some interesting things along the way. A group of scientists who want to prove the existence of God, who wanted to know if I could move an object across a table with my mind. And I said, no, but I'll learn how to bend a spoon. And then I did. Wow. You know, wow. And for those of you not watching, forgive me, but this is a bunch of things I've bent.
Oh, no.
You know, spoons I've bent. And like I said on my YouTube channel, there's a video of me talking about mind, and I bend a spoon while I'm talking to the camera, to you.
Is it how Uri Geller says you're telling it to bend with the intention? Is that pretty much
There's different ways. There's different methods. When I learned from a teacher from the Monroe Institute, which it was really interesting because the scientist who wanted to see if I could move things across the table, and I said, no, but I might know somebody. And so I tried to find people, but I couldn't find anyone for them to test. They actually have a lab at Rutgers University. And some of my friends were saying, don't do it. You don't need to be a lab rat. And I'm like, it's okay. I've been tested on ESP. You know, I don't mind a few things as long as they're not sticking into my brain.
Yeah.
You know, if it's just sticking on the surface, it's not going to bug me. Monroe Institute wanted me to do a sleep thing, but that involved wearing some kind of Wi-Fi device. And I won't sleep with Wi-Fi in my room or anything plugged in around my bed. So that's a no thank you. And I did take their whole Gateway Experience course on my own. I was gifted the CDs. So I took 3 days and burned them into MP3s, and I bought a few tracks from them. And you can take a couple preliminary on like Spotify, or it's probably on iTunes, to see if you like it. And this is the course that actually AJ from the Y-Files talks about, that the CIA used. Robert Monroe stumbled upon this. I've also graduated from the Silva mind control theory. Both use a frequency to trigger an altered state. And yeah, I mean, obviously I've been fascinated with the stuff, and I'll be like, yep, I'll try it. Give me the stuff. I'll tell you my results. So the spoon bending, I said, I'm sorry to the scientists, and, good luck proving God. I hope it works.
Wow.
And then in my inbox, now we're going to point to synchronicity, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
I get an email from the Monroe Institute. Would you like to learn spoon bending? It's like, what? And I was talking about it. I thought, sure. So I took the class, and they use some guided meditations, a little bit hypnotic maybe, and talk about it. Shows some videos of different people's ideas and techniques. One woman talked about, she would hold a spoon, and she talked about, understanding the spin of the energy of the spoon and then working with it. I don't know that I'm really cognating it like that when I'm doing it,
Mm-hmm.
and I tend to rub the spoon or the fork. I find forks a little more difficult. Maybe it's the smoothness of the spoon, but I rub the back of the spoon on my palm, and I feel the handle of the spoon, and then I start to feel like, okay, it wants to bend, and I've made curly cues out of them. So
wow,
yeah,
interesting.
There, I showed you one, right?
Sure. I'm just trying to think of the thought process involved. It sounds like a combination of feelings.
Watch me talk about it. I do have a short video. I don't remember if I put it on YouTube, of the night after the class, where I was talking to a friend of mine, and I bent a spoon. And you can see the surprise in my face, because it happened during the class, but I wanted to see if I could do it later that night, and she hit record, so it didn't pick up the sound, but I did a voiceover when I posted it on Instagram.
That's pretty cool. A few more questions, and we'll wrap up soon.
Okay.
What do you think is the biggest challenge people face when starting on a spiritual path?
Doubting themselves. Not trusting themselves. Not trusting that every little thing counts. And the second thing that they may fail at is celebrating every little thing that's a win. And I think the same goes for manifestation. The law of attraction states, if you want to manifest something, you have to be grateful for what you already have.
Wow. I don't think anyone ever says that. Like I always think people are like, match the frequency. That's usually what we hear the most, right? But I guess that might be the frequency of what you want, is to be grateful. Gratitude. Yeah.
There's two things, love and fear. Which one do you want? I choose love.
Yeah. And what's interesting is, I think age and growth has a lot to do with it, because I'm pretty sure it wasn't until my mid-20s where I was like really able to fight my own anxiety without feeling like I needed external sources to escape all the time. So I really
think mechanisms, sometimes we need them. Sometimes we take a really hard hit, Joe. And we need some coping mechanism. As long as we're not causing harm to self or harm to anyone else,
For sure.
Go easy on yourself. And try not to make it a habit.
This is a funny question, because I'm kind of want to tie in AI and your thoughts on it, but where do you see the future of spiritual practices heading in the next decade?
How does AI? I don't understand the tie into AI.
Well, here we go. That's a good one. I'm using I Ching in many ways of like divination with AI. and I consult with it like super often, like with a
So
lot.
you don't do it with coins or
I don't.
yarrow
I
sticks?
started to simulate it, and it's the exact same results that I would like anticipate. And sometimes it'll even give me the same answers, and it makes it even more weird and synchronous for me.
I have an app somewhere for that. I understand. I used to, in my 20s, I used to toss the coins every morning, and I had several books. Yeah,
that's so cool.
Yeah,
I love it.
It was just wash my body,
It was part of the day.
release my body, wash my body, do the I Ching. It was just the morning routine.
Yeah, the idea that so many people have consulted with it for thousands of years, and it made me trust it even more so. I'm like, well, if other people think there's something here.
Yeah, I have also, I invented a game, but I didn't publish it for astrological dice.
What?
Yeah, so it's and when I was on the TLC show, this was like the cheesy bit when they would like actually bring me on camera. I'd have to, which I was like, come on, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to write pop astrology anymore, but let's play. Okay. So, one is the planets, one, the 12 signs, and then the numbers 1 through 12, which are the houses used in an astrological chart. So let's focus on a message for everybody, Joe. Let's put our focus together. Let's join our toroidal energy, our slipstream rivers. So I'll take a breath. Everybody listening, this is for you too. I'm rolling the dice. And what we have is Mars, the planet Mars, in the sign of Virgo, in the third house. So the third house is communication and learning things in incremental steps and stages. Early education, elementary education. The elements are important to understand everything else. We have to first understand the elements before we can think of the units that are created by them. So if we're thinking of a rock or a crystal, we have to understand the minerals involved in the rock and the crystal, right? And then the sign of Virgo is being able to pull apart all the information, to be able to digest it, to discern the information. And then the planet Mars is action. It is the force, the drive, the attack. So for all of us, let's attack all of these new ideas and concepts, even the ones we think we already know. Let's pull apart all the fibers of them and dive even deeper into them. And let's remember always the elements that are involved in creating them.
Why don't you sell this game? I'm like,
I have to rewrite it. But if y'all want to create a Patreon for me, you can talk me into it.
That's pretty cool. I think people would buy that, honestly, because it's a lot more convenient than a deck of cards too.
Well, the thing is, there's all these different combinations because it's 3 times 12. So, and then, I even made a hand sewn bound book, but I'm not pleased with. I tried to make it like fortune cookies, like the planets have a sentence and then it continues in the. But anyway, I just gave you a reading from my knowledge on that, which would be way more in depth than what was in the original game. So that was just us playing with my astrological dice.
That is super cool. Okay, daily rituals. Could you share 1 or 2 rituals that significantly impact your spiritual health?
Daily rituals. Get up, empty the body, wash the body, go for a walk, and having not looked at the phone. It's in airplane mode. So first, phone is in airplane mode in another room. Take care of the ablutions of the cleansing. Drink water. Then take care of anything that needs to be done. Go out for a walk before it gets too hot. And walk the first mile either in total silence, but if the mind is bouncing around, chant, sing, stop and admire all creatures and, flora and fauna. And then on the way back, listen to something inspirational, a podcast, a book I'm listening to, or write, because actually I wrote my second book in a phone, and that was before smartphones. It was when you had to push the buttons.
Yeah.
Like a little typewriter.
Like a BlackBerry almost.
Yeah, but it was,
Ooh.
I'm trying to remember what style it was. It wasn't one of those ones where it kind of flew out, but it opened up. It was like a keyboard.
Got you.
It was like a little typewriter keyboard. Boy, that was a good phone. Yeah. Well, and I was interviewing the co-author, so I ghost wrote his part. So I had to go for walks with him because that was what he needed to feel stimulated to talk about stuff.
Interesting. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I've done ghostwriting before that, even astrological ghostwriting. And then
brainstorming method though.
And then come back, maybe write for a while, maybe write more. And of course, on the walk, if it's the silent part, if a neighbor's there, I say good morning, and greet their animal if they have a dog. Then I talk to the animals. I recognize some of the squirrels. Occasionally I take them peanuts. And and I bark at the alligators because they bark kind of like ducks.
Oh yeah, Florida.
And
that's funny.
Yeah, and then I come home and when I feel I drink some more water and take some diatomaceous earth and water, and then I do some exercises, yoga. And, I may have done pranayama and meditation first. Usually right after the walk, I go out and sit in the water and meditate and do pranayama. Or if it's not pool weather, then I do that inside. And then the other stuff. So, yeah, that's every day. Drink more water. Drink more water.
For real, though, everybody.
Bathe.
Can you share one piece of wisdom, maybe from your cultural background, that can help us today? Any culture you find most interesting?
Honor your body. Honor the fact that you already won the lottery to get in a body, to have the opportunity to go through all of the lessons, to feel all the pleasure and the pain. Because this is all part of accelerating you forward and giving you the opportunity to realize what you really are, which is a spiritual being and part of the omnipresence. You are not separate, and that you are the witness of the body and the mind, watching it have a human experience. So accept, adapt, and accommodate and love. Love yourself, love everything and everyone around you, and love even more.
Coming down to the little last few questions, what did you learn most from the success of your book?
Which book?
Well, I think the first one is the one that you said was like...
they've won prizes. I've won writing awards. Oh, yeah, I've won. I haven't entered Cupid in one yet because I don't know where to put it. Is it a memoir? Is it a book of poetry? Is it a short story in there? It's like, it's got recipes, it's got aromatherapy. It's a memoir. But would a memoir contest give me a prize for it? Probably not.
Maybe just any lessons then in general from the success of writing?
Just keep writing. Don't let your ego get inflated. Write the next thing. Write every day. I love it when a client comes to me and in the first few moments or, the first 20 minutes, the idea of they journal comes up. I'm like, hallelujah. That's a big hurdle. I don't have to worry about jumping over with you.
Last question here is your mystical influences. Are there any mystical books or teachings that have significantly shaped your views?
Would you like to see my library?
Just turns the camera around.
It's down that way. there are some influences. Linda Goodman was an early influence. She was actually a teacher of mine. So not just her books, but those have a lot of meaning. The Vedas, the Upanishads. I am currently writing a paper for a course I'm taking at Oxford University, which is part of my trying to satisfy the PhD at a different school, because my school told me go publish papers, but then when I tried, the places said, well, you have to have a PhD to publish with us. So I found this little part of Oxford University that, even though it's not an accredited course, I can write a heavy duty paper for it.
Wow.
So then I wrote to my professor this morning in India and I said, would you have a look at this paper before I hand it in my hopes of him coming back and saying, this is really good. I'm going to see if I can get it published somewhere. Is that ego? Well, maybe. I don't know. But I don't stop writing. I don't stop researching. So another pearl of wisdom I'd like to share with everybody is one of my very strong beliefs that I will not back up on is when we stop learning, we stop living.
Wow. More Than Rich to you? Any other last words on More Than Rich and its meaning, and anything you want to promote? Website?
I think books. I just said it in that last statement.
Yeah.
That I think learning, because remember what I said about flipping the light switch on and that being knowledge, which is jnana yoga. That is the Vedas. The book I'm reading right now, the Atma Bodha. This is a used copy. It was supposedly written by Shankaracharya, and this translation is fantastic by Swami Nikhilananda. Some of these names, you have to watch it, you don't tongue twist on. And Atma Bodha. Atma is the word in Sanskritam, which is Sanskrit, said in Sanskrit, that means that omnipresent spirit having the human experience, Atma. And Bodha means, realizing that you're that. So there's a phrase in Sanskritam, Tattvam Asi. Some people translate to be thou art that, or there you are, or that it is. So that's my quest, trying to make this accessible to little kids and the inner child in all of us so that we all want to come out and play with it.
Yeah, and I feel like bringing things to the forefront that were already popular in the past, so just kind of sparking interest in a much more digestible format too for the next generation.
Hopefully, if I'm making it more digestible, bless your heart for saying that.
And not just that, but more interesting, right? Like,
cool. I hope so. And with fun stories and fun facts. Yeah. I'm not afraid to play and spoon bending. I think this is what a lot of the world's spiritual groups are trying to teach us. But then remember what I said about love and fear? I think a lot of groups and organizations are trying to scare us into getting information. And if you think back to when you were a little kid, I don't think you learned well when you were frightened. I don't think you owned it.
It's true.
So,
and it makes me think about how we're obtaining knowledge too, the difference in how it's changed over time.
Yeah, let's not be afraid of books and cards and, information, but let's use that inspiration from the astro dice of, let's pull apart the fibers and let's drive at it with that Mars energy. Let's realize it's there and start to discern it and pull apart, and let's learn in increments in the house of, let's be like little elementary students learning it, and let's look at all the minerals involved in the rock.
Little pending trademark disclaimer, Astro Dice.
That's
a good name, though.
I didn't give the name of what I called it.
I know. Just
Astro Dice, you can find those. Write me and I'll get you a link where you can get them, but then you need me to read them for you. But I, maybe I should put some focus on that. I mean,
dude, that would be smart. It comes with a subscription to a reading. That'd be cool. Just an idea. Who
wants to be the manager on this? Who wants to make a percentage? Come forward, please. Put me on stages, people. What I really want is I want to teach not just people who have open ideas and their minds are that doorway's been creaked open, but I want to continue to talk to corporations and management, and I want to talk to kids and teachers, and I want to teach the teachers so that everybody's feeling comfortable when they're walking into a test, the one giving it and the one sitting for it. I really feel like there's a lot I can share with everybody about understanding all of this. And if you want to get in touch with me, it's myname.com, which is Ambika Devi, AMBIKA DEVI. And then just put .com, ambikadevi.com. And you can find my link tree. Just if you know how to find a link tree, linktr.ee/my name, Ambika Devi, AMBIKA DEVI. You can find my podcast for free. It's on Spotify and a bunch of other places. You can find it on my site to find your favorite platform. And it's got guided meditation and the audio versions of my blog articles. My blog has all different topics. You can learn some astrology. I've got courses at my website. I'm putting up some free courses covering holistic health, these esoteric art forms. You tell me what you want to learn and let's do it. If you want to create a webinar, it's best to just, ambika@ambikadevi.com, but really just send me a message through the site. You can find the contact at the top on the menu, and easy enough to find the contact form pretty much on every page. There's YouTube channel / my name, Ambika Devi. On social media, you have to put the number 1008 on because it is a popular name. I got the .com, but I didn't get it on all the sites. So on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, you need the 1008. And why, you might ask, children? Because there are 100. I'm sorry, did I say 100? It's 1008. 1008. So Ambika Devi 1008. And then you'll find me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Because my name is the name of one of the 1008 names for the great mother goddess. So you might know her by other names like Gaia or Mother Nature or Uma or Parvati or Padashakti.
Is that a little numerology you threw in there?
The number 108 is how many times we chant a rosary, a mala. But a rosary is 54 beads that the Catholics use, half a mala. How about that? Where did they get that, I wonder?
That is a good one.
Yeah.
It's funny because the whole time you're talking here, I keep looking over for more questions, but I think we'll just save them for the next one. We'll definitely get another episode going. But I hope
so. It was really enjoyable, Joe. Everybody who listened to the end, my goodness, thank you for being troopers and staying in. I appreciate it.
I will definitely let you know when it's out. I appreciate it. This was more than insightful, I'll tell you that. I know it's more than rich, but today learned more than I anticipated on very spiritual topics. So I'm going to go meditate on this.